There is an animal in Africa that has been misunderstood so completely, so thoroughly, so persistently across centuries of storytelling and observation and supposed scientific study, that almost everything most people believe about it is wrong, not slightly off, not missing nuance. Wrong in the fundamental way, wrong about what it eats and how it hunts and what it is and why it does the things it does. And when you strip away the mythology and the cartoon villainy and the 1,000 years of bad reputation and look at what is actually there, what you find is something so sophisticated, so socially complex, so ruthlessly effective, so genuinely strange and wonderful in the specific way that only wild animals that have been solving hard problems for millions of years can be strange and wonderful, that it stops you cold. What you find is the hyena. And the hyena, it turns out, is not what you think. Subscribe right now if you want to understand the wild the way it actually works, not the version where the hyena is a scavenger and a coward and a skulking thief in the shadow of the real predators, but the real version, the version built on decades of field research and camera traps and nights sitting in the dark on the Serengeti listening to sounds that make your hair stand up, the version where the hyena turns out to be one of the most extraordinary creatures on the planet. Let's go. We need to start with the laugh, because that is where the misunderstanding starts, and if we do not deal with it first, everything that comes after it will be filtered through the wrong lens. The sound that hyenas make, the sound that has given them their reputation for madness and chaos and moral vacancy in folktales from sub-Saharan Africa to ancient Egypt to medieval Europe, that cascading, rising, almost human giggle that carries for miles across the African night, is not laughter. It is not an expression of amusement. It is not the sound of a deranged animal that has lost its grip on sanity. It is communication. Precise, sophisticated, information-rich communication that carries specific data about the identity and status of the individual making the sound, and when you understand what it is actually saying, the sound changes entirely. It does not become less eerie, it becomes more impressive, because you are no longer hearing madness, you are hearing language. The whooping call of the spotted hyena, Crocuta crocuta, the most well-studied and most widespread of the 4 hyena species, contains information about the age of the caller. It contains information about the caller's social rank within its clan. It contains information about the caller's emotional state in the context of a specific interaction. Research conducted by behavioral ecologists who have spent years recording and analyzing these calls has shown that hyenas can recognize the voices of individuals from their own clan and from neighboring clans, can assess the number of individuals calling from a distant group, and can use this acoustic information to make decisions about whether to approach or retreat, whether a dispute is winnable or whether the numbers are against them. A hyena calling in the dark is not expressing chaos. It is broadcasting a message, and other hyenas across a potentially enormous distance are receiving and decoding that message with a precision that is remarkable. The giggle, specifically the highest, fastest, most frantic element of the hyena vocal repertoire, is almost exclusively associated with moments of extreme social tension. It is made most often by subordinate animals in the presence of dominant ones, in feeding situations, in conflict situations, in the moments when social hierarchy is being enforced and challenged and renegotiated. It is the sound of an animal under social pressure. Which means when you see hyenas at a kill, snarling and snapping and giggling in what looks like insane pandemonium, you are actually watching a highly structured social negotiation over access to resources, with every individual's position in that negotiation determined by a hierarchy that has been established over months and years of prior interaction. The chaos has a structure, the noise has a meaning. And the animal you have been told is a disorder is actually a very precisely ordered society, making itself audible. Let us talk about that society, because the social structure of a spotted hyena clan is one of the most fascinating and counterintuitive social arrangements in the animal kingdom, and it is the key to understanding almost everything else about how hyenas live and hunt and survive. Spotted hyenas live in clans, not loose aggregations of individuals who happen to be in the same area, not casual associations that form and dissolve around food sources. Actual clans, structured social groups that can number from a few dozen to over 100 individuals, with stable membership, established relationships between individuals, and a social hierarchy that is both rigidly maintained and profoundly important to every aspect of daily life. The clan has a territory. It has a communal den, usually a system of holes and underground passages, often dug by warthogs or aardvarks and then taken over and modified by the hyenas, where cubs are raised in close proximity to one another and where the core social interactions of the group happen. The clan is a society in the full sense of the word, and like all societies it has its own politics, its own alliances, its own history of conflicts and resolutions, its own internal logic. What is immediately strange about this society, strange in the context of mammalian social organization generally, is that it is matriarchal, not just female-led in the way that some primate societies have prominent females. Matriarchal in the deep structural sense, where females consistently outrank males, where the lowest-ranking adult female outranks the highest-ranking adult male, where males spend their lives navigating a social world in which they are, by definition, subordinate to the majority of the group's members, where the hierarchy is female-dominated all the way down. This is unusual enough in the mammal world that researchers studying it for the first time had to sit with it for a while before they believed it was as consistent and absolute as it appeared to be. In most social mammals, males are larger than females, and larger size tends to correlate with social dominance. Male lions dominate female lions. Male baboons dominate female baboons. Male elephants, while living in separate groups from females for most of their lives, are substantially larger and more physically powerful. The general rule in mammalian biology is that males fight for dominance and that physical size and strength are the primary currencies of those fights. In spotted hyenas, females are larger than males. Not dramatically, but consistently. An adult female spotted hyena outweighs an adult male by about 10%, and she's more heavily muscled in the neck and forequarters. This reversal of the typical mammalian size dimorphism is connected to something else about spotted hyena females that is so anatomically extraordinary that scientists who study it still argue about exactly how and why it evolved. Female spotted hyenas have external genitalia that, to every external observation, appear identical to those of the males. The clitoris is elongated into what is called a pseudopenis, and the labia are fused into what resembles a scrotum, though containing no testes. The resemblance is not superficial. It is detailed enough that for a long time, even among naturalists who spent considerable time observing hyenas, the sex of individuals was frequently misidentified. Aristotle wrote about hyenas and believed they could change their sex from year to year. Medieval European bestiaries repeated this claim. The physical reality is not sex change, but a degree of physical convergence between male and female anatomy that has no close parallel in any other mammal. The evolutionary explanation for this is still debated among biologists, but the most compelling hypothesis connects the pseudopenis to the female dominance hierarchy. In a society where social rank is everything, where rank determines access to food and mates and survival, and where rank is contested and reinforced through behavioral signals including genital displays, the possession of male-like external genitalia by females may have been selected for precisely because it allowed females to participate in and ultimately dominate a display system that in ancestral hyenas may have been male-exclusive. By having the equipment to perform dominance displays, females were able to insert themselves into the hierarchy and eventually to come out on top. The anatomy followed the social need. The practical consequences of this anatomy are significant and in some ways brutal. Female spotted hyenas give birth and mate through the pseudopenis. Birth through a structure that is not designed for birth is extraordinarily difficult. First-time mothers frequently lose their cubs because the birth canal is too narrow and too long, and the oxygen supply to the cubs is cut off before they emerge. First-time births have a very high cub mortality rate. It is a remarkable thing when you think about it, an evolutionary trajectory that produced female dominance at the cost of tremendous reproductive difficulty. Whatever advantage the female dominance system confers must be enormous to have been maintained despite this cost, and the research suggests it is enormous. In lean times, when food is scarce, dominant females consistently raise more surviving cubs than subordinate animals. Access to food, mediated by social rank, translates directly into reproductive success, and female dominance means female access, and female access means female reproductive advantage, and over evolutionary time those advantages compound into the structure we see today. Now let us talk about hunting, because this is where the most important correction to the received wisdom about hyenas needs to happen. The hyena has been cast for centuries in the role of the scavenger, the animal that hangs around the edges of things, that waits for the real predators to make their kills and then rushes in to steal what it can. The skulker, the thief, the unglamorous opportunist living off the work of others. This image is so deeply embedded in the cultural representation of hyenas, from the Lion King to 19th-century hunting narratives to contemporary wildlife documentary narration, that it has shaped the expectations that people bring to any observation of hyenas in the field, causing them to interpret what they see through a framework that the evidence does not support. Here is what the evidence actually shows. In the Serengeti and the Ngorongoro crater, two of the most intensively studied large predator ecosystems in Africa, spotted hyenas are the most numerically dominant large predator. In the Ngorongoro crater specifically, a closed ecosystem that functions as a natural experiment in predator-prey dynamics because its volcanic walls restrict the movement of animals in and out, spotted hyenas make up the largest predator biomass, meaning when you add up the total weight of all the predators in the ecosystem, hyenas outweigh lions, leopards, and cheetahs combined. They are not the supporting cast. They are the dominant predator, and the evidence on how they obtain their food reflects this. Studies in the Ngorongoro crater by the pioneering researcher Hans Kruk in the 1960s and 70s, studies that fundamentally changed the scientific understanding of hyena ecology, found that hyenas in that ecosystem obtained more than 90% of their food by hunting. Not by scavenging, by hunting. And that on a significant proportion of kills where both lions and hyenas were present, it was the lions who were the thieves, who had arrived at a hyena kill and taken it, while the hyenas they had allegedly stolen it from watched from a distance. This finding was genuinely shocking at the time. It inverted the established narrative so completely that some researchers resisted it, but subsequent decades of study in multiple ecosystems across Africa have consistently supported it. Spotted hyenas are primarily hunters. They are in terms of hunting success rate, caloric return per hunt, biomass of prey killed per unit area, and numerical dominance of their habitat, among the most effective predators on the African continent. Let us watch them do it. Not because the mechanics of hyena hunting are brutal, though they are, but because they are a masterclass in the application of intelligence to a physical challenge, and the intelligence is visible if you know what you are looking for. The hunt begins before the hunt. Spotted hyenas use a sensory range that is extraordinary even by the standards of African carnivores. Their sense of smell is exceptional, capable of detecting carrion from distances of up to several kilometers under the right wind conditions, but this sensory capacity is not merely oriented toward dead things. Hyenas can smell the specific chemical signatures of healthy prey animals versus stressed or injured ones, can smell the presence of wildebeest calves born within the last few hours, whose condition makes them vulnerable in ways that a healthy adult wildebeest is not. The nose is a threat assessment tool as much as a food-finding tool. A hyena moving through the dark is reading a landscape of chemical information that is invisible to human observers but as detailed in its own way as anything we can see. Their hearing is equally acute. Those large, rounded ears, which in the spotted hyena are slightly smaller and more rounded than in the brown and striped species, can pick up the sounds of vultures landing on a kill miles away, can detect the vocalizations of a distant lion pride that might indicate a kill in progress, can hear the footfall of prey animals in grass that reaches above a hyena's back. The hyena moves through its territory as through a constant broadcast of information, reading, assessing, adjusting. The decision to hunt is not casual. Hyenas approaching a prey species spend time in reconnaissance that can last for extended periods before any commitment to pursuit. They test the herd. They watch individuals. They are looking for the animal that moves slightly differently, holds its weight slightly unevenly, falls a step behind the others when startled, shows any of the dozens of subtle physical cues that separate a vulnerable individual from a healthy one. This assessment is not infallible. Hyenas will pursue a target that turns out to be healthier than it appeared and abandon the chase when the animal's speed makes it clear that the metabolic cost of continuing the pursuit will exceed the caloric return of the kill. But the initial investment in reading the herd before committing to pursuit is one of the things that makes hyenas so efficient. They are selective in a way that maximizes their success rate. When the pursuit begins, the terrain changes everything, and hyenas have adapted to nearly every terrain that African ecosystems offer. In open grasslands, where the long flat distances of the Serengeti allow prey animals to see a predator approaching, hyenas use an endurance hunting strategy that has more in common with what human marathon runners do than with the explosive burst hunting of a cheetah or the ambush tactics of a leopard. The spotted hyena is built for distance. Its heart is unusually large relative to its body mass. Its cardiovascular system is exceptionally efficient. Its distinctive loping gait, which looks ungainly and almost mechanical to human observers, is actually a biomechanical wonder that minimizes energy expenditure at speed, allowing hyenas to maintain a pace of around 50 to 60 kilometers per hour over distances of several kilometers. Not as fast as a cheetah at full sprint. Not as powerful as a lion at the moment of impact, but sustainable in a way that neither of those animals can match. A wildebeest chased by hyenas across open grassland has three options. It can outrun them, which healthy adult wildebeest usually can over short distances. It can stand and fight, which some bulls do and some bulls win, but the cost of fighting is high and the wildebeest's defensive weapons, its horns and hooves, are less effective against the hyena's specific combination of speed, maneuverability, and pain tolerance than they would be against a more conventionally attacking predator. Or it can try to sustain its speed over the distance, and this is where the hyena's endurance advantage becomes decisive. A wildebeest running at full speed builds a lactic acid debt in its muscles. It heats up. Its cardiovascular system is working at maximum capacity. After several kilometers of full-speed flight, the wildebeest is exhausted in a way that the hyenas running at their efficient, sustainable pace are not. The The gap closes, the leading hyena reaches the target. And what follows is not the clean killing bite of a lion or the suffocating throat grip of a leopard, because the hyena is not equipped for that kind of killing. What follows is something faster and in some ways more terrible, which we will come to. The endurance strategy is not the only one. Hyenas hunting in dense bush where visibility is reduced and the open ground advantage disappears modify their tactics entirely. Ambush elements enter the strategy. Individual hyenas in a group hunt move to cut off escape routes, anticipating where a fleeing animal will run and positioning themselves accordingly. This kind of coordinated spatial anticipation, where multiple individuals independently move to positions that collectively form a net around a prey animal, requires something that researchers call theory of mind, the ability to model what another individual, whether a predator companion or a prey animal, is likely to do next based on the current situation. Theory of mind is rare in the animal kingdom. It is robust in primates. It appears in corvids, the crow and raven family. It is present in dolphins. And it is present in spotted hyenas, demonstrated in a series of controlled experimental studies that showed hyenas could follow human pointing gestures to locate hidden food, understand gaze direction as an information cue, and solve cooperative puzzles that required coordinating with another individual based on an understanding of what that individual could and could not do. The intelligence of spotted hyenas, which now has a substantial and rigorous experimental literature behind it, is one of the most dramatic revisions to our understanding of animal cognition that field research has produced. When researchers ran spotted hyenas through tests of social intelligence that had previously been used primarily to rank different primate species, the hyenas consistently performed at levels comparable to chimpanzees. In some tests, specifically tests involving social coordination and the ability to use information about what a partner knows or does not know, hyenas outperformed chimpanzees. They did this with a brain that, in terms of absolute size and the ratio of neocortex to total brain volume that neuroscientists traditionally use as a proxy for cognitive complexity, looks less impressive than the primate brain. The implication is that the specific cognitive demands of living in a complex, hierarchical social group, with dozens of individual relationships to track and constant strategic decision-making to perform, can drive the evolution of specific cognitive capacities through pathways that are not identical to the primate pathway, and that the result can be equally sophisticated despite being structurally different. The social complexity of the clan is the engine driving this cognitive evolution. In a group of 60 or 80 or 100 spotted hyenas, every individual has a rank relative to every other individual. Ranks change over time. Cubs are born into their mother's rank, inheriting her social position in the hierarchy, meaning a cub born to a high-ranking female immediately outranks all adult males in the clan simply by virtue of the mother it happened to be born to. This inherited rank must be learned and enforced through behavior, and the cub's mother plays an active role in this process, supporting her offspring in confrontations with lower-ranking animals, teaching the cub both that it has a claim to priority and that this claim can be exercised. Growing up in this environment, navigating hundreds of individual relationships simultaneously, tracking who is allied with whom, who has recently changed position in the hierarchy, which rivals are vulnerable and which are dangerous, which coalition partners can be relied upon and which cannot, this is the cognitive environment that has driven the evolution of hyena intelligence. Not tool use, not foraging innovation, social complexity, the need to model a society. Let us go to the den. Let us go to the center of hyena social life, because it is at the communal den that the clan reveals itself most completely, where the politics and the hierarchies and the relationships that drive everything else become visible in the interactions of individuals who spend their days and nights there. The communal den of a spotted hyena clan is almost always a network of holes rather than a single burrow, because adult spotted hyenas, which are large animals, cannot fit into tunnels narrow enough to be comfortably dug, so they take over and modify the diggings of other species. The dens of warthogs and aardvarks, whose powerful forelegs are built for serious excavation in a way that hyenas are not, are prime real estate. A major hyena den might have 20 or 30 entrances spread over an area of several hundred square meters, connected below ground by tunnels that only the cubs can navigate, with larger chambers at depths that provide temperature stability and protection from surface predators. The entrance areas of the den, where the underground tunnels open to the surface, become the social hub of the clan, particularly in the hours around dawn and dusk when the most intense social interactions happen. Cubs at the den are a revealing window into the clan's social structure. Spotted hyena cubs are born with their eyes open and with their milk teeth already present, which is unusual among large carnivores, and within weeks they are already practicing the social behaviors they will spend their lives performing. Aggression between littermates begins early, often within the first week of life, as cubs establish a sibling hierarchy that in same-sex twins can be absolute and relentless. Spotted hyenas regularly produce twins, and the older twin or the initially stronger one will attack the younger so persistently and so ferociously that the younger cub can die of starvation even when food is present because it has been prevented from nursing. This sibling aggression is not a malfunction. It is a functional behavior in a system where rank is everything and establishing early dominance has long-term reproductive consequences. It is terrible to watch. And it is entirely logical. Cubs from different litters at the communal den interact in ways that begin to establish the rank relationships they will carry into adulthood. A cub born to a dominant female will behave with a confidence in these interactions and will be supported by its mother in them that cements its social position early and in ways that follow it throughout its life. The socialization at the den is not innocent play. It is preparation for a specific social system, and the cubs are learning that system's rules before they are old enough to understand them conceptually. The adult interactions at the den are structured around the greeting ceremony, which is one of the most distinctive and in some ways most symbolically important behavioral rituals in the mammal world. When two spotted hyenas meet, particularly individuals of different social rank or individuals returning after a separation, they perform a mutual genital inspection, a ritualized sniffing of each other's genitalia that functions as the primary social recognition and status assessment behavior in the species. Both animals stand parallel but head to tail, and each inspects the other simultaneously. This behavior occurs between individuals of all sex and rank combinations, though the behavioral signals surrounding it, the postures, the ear positions, the vocalizations, differ according to the relative ranks of the participants. For the dominant individual, the genital display is a statement of social position. For the subordinate, it is an acknowledgement of that position. The ceremony is simultaneously an information exchange and a social contract renewal. The greeting ceremony is also, crucially, a moment of vulnerability. An animal raising its leg to allow genital inspection is exposing a sensitive area to another individual who could, in theory, bite. The choice to submit to this inspection to make this display of trust and subordination is a behavioral decision that requires reading the situation correctly. In a stable social hierarchy, these interactions are largely automatic and rapid. In situations of social instability, when ranks are changing or contested, they become longer and more complex and more fraught. The greeting ceremony is the hyena clan made visible in miniature, the whole of the social system condensed into an interaction that lasts perhaps 30 seconds. Now let us talk about what hyenas eat and what they can do with it, because the biomechanical capabilities of the spotted hyena are genuinely extraordinary and represent an evolutionary specialization that has given hyenas access to a food resource that almost no other predator can exploit. The jaws of a spotted hyena are, relative to the animal's size, among the most powerful biting apparatus in the land-dwelling mammal world. The bite force of a spotted hyena has been measured at around 1,100 pounds per square inch, which to put in comparative perspective is roughly double the bite force of a lion and 3 times the bite force of a large dog. This is not an arbitrary statistic. It is the number that explains why hyenas can do something that lions cannot, that leopards cannot, that wild dogs cannot, that almost no other predator in their ecosystem can. Hyenas can crack bone. The large prey animals of the African savanna, when killed by a predator, represent an enormous caloric resource. But most of that resource is locked into the skeleton in the form of bone marrow, a rich mixture of lipids and proteins that is among the most calorie-dense food available in the ecosystem. The bones themselves represent another resource, both for the marrow they contain and for their mineral content. A lion feeding on a wildebeest will consume the muscle meat, the organs, the skin. It will leave the bones largely intact. The bones are a secondary resource available to other animals. Vultures will peck what flesh remains, jackals will gnaw the edges, but the marrow itself, sealed inside the cortical bone, is inaccessible to anything that cannot crack the bone to get at it. Hyenas crack the bone. They do it routinely and efficiently, crunching through the femur of a wildebeest the way a person might crunch a piece of hard candy, the skull of a buffalo, the spine of a giraffe. These are structures built to withstand enormous mechanical stress during the life of the animal, and hyenas destroy them casually in pursuit of the marrow they contain. The percentage of a carcass that a hyena consumes compared to what a lion leaves behind is dramatically higher, and this ability to extract nutrition from what other predators consider the waste of a kill is a significant part of what allows the hyena's extreme numerical dominance in its ecosystem. They are extracting value from resources that other animals leave on the ground. The digestive system of the spotted hyena is correspondingly adapted to process what it eats. The stomach is highly acidic, capable of dissolving bone fragments and destroying pathogens that would be lethal to most other animals. Hyenas can eat and fully digest material that is heavily contaminated with anthrax spores, with botulinum toxin, with the bacteria of advanced decomposition without apparent harm, because their digestive chemistry neutralizes these threats. This is part of what allows hyenas to consume carcasses at stages of decomposition that other predators will not touch, extending the range of food sources available to them and reducing the competition for any given resource. A carcass that has been lying in the African heat for several days and that lions have abandoned is still useful to a hyena. The hyena is not scavenging because it cannot hunt. It is scavenging because it has the biological tools to extract nutrition from resources that would sicken or kill other predators, and this ability is a competitive advantage rather than a limitation. The white, chalk-colored scat that hyenas leave is a byproduct of bone consumption. The calcium from processed bone passes through the digestive system and gives hyena droppings their distinctive appearance, which is actually one of the most reliable field signs that hyenas are using an area. The scat is an advertisement of a capability, a visible marker that the animal that passed this way has a digestive system unlike anything else in the ecosystem. Let us leave the spotted hyena for a moment and talk about the others, because there are 3 other species in the family Hyenidae, and each of them is extraordinary in ways that are almost completely absent from popular understanding. 2 of them are so different from what most people imagine when they think of a hyena that they force a complete reimagining of what the hyena family actually is. The striped hyena, is the geographically widest-ranging member of the family, occurring from sub-Saharan Africa through the Sahara and into the Middle East, across Central Asia as far as India. It is a smaller animal than the spotted hyena, more lightly built, with the impressive dorsal mane of stiff hair that can be raised to make the animal appear significantly larger, a defensive display aimed at convincing potential threats to reconsider. The striped hyena is more solitary than the spotted, living in small family groups rather than large clans, and it is more of a true generalist omnivore, eating fruit and insects and small vertebrates as well as larger prey and carrion, adapting its diet flexibly to what its extremely varied range offers. The striped hyena has a relationship with human beings that is simultaneously more complex and more ancient than most people realize. In parts of the Middle East and South Asia, particularly in areas where livestock are kept in ways that bring humans and predators into close proximity, striped hyenas have historically been regarded with a mixture of fear and respect that has generated some of the most elaborate folkloric tradition associated with any predator in the world. In Arabic tradition, the hyena is associated with supernatural powers, with the ability to hypnotize prey and human beings alike, with the capacity to lead travelers astray in the desert. In some South Asian traditions, it is associated with burial grounds and the spirits of the dead, a connection that comes partly from the hyena's real behavior of excavating human burials to access the remains, which they do, because the striped hyena's jaw and digestive system are as capable as the spotted's, and a buried human body is a food source that the hyena's chemical senses can detect through considerable depth of soil. The brown hyena, Parahyena brunnea, is the rarest of the 3 species in the genus and is found in southern Africa, in the Kalahari and Namibian deserts and the coastal areas of the Skeleton Coast, where it has developed a foraging strategy adapted to an extremely arid and resource-scarce environment. The brown hyena is primarily a scavenger, genuinely and by behavioral choice rather than by incapacity, because the environment it inhabits does not reliably support the kind of group hunting that spotted hyenas engage in. It lives alone or in small groups, covers enormous distances in its nightly foraging, and maintains what appears to be a complex spatial memory that allows it to return to widely dispersed food caches that it has created during previous nights. The brown hyena's territory on the Skeleton Coast of Namibia, one of the most inhospitable coastlines in the world where the cold Benguela Current generates a permanent sea mist that supports a surprisingly diverse ecosystem despite almost zero rainfall, includes access to the beach, where fur seals haul out in their thousands, and where the ocean regularly deposits stranded whales, dolphins, and seabirds. The brown hyenas of the Skeleton Coast have become highly adapted to marine carrion as a food source, and the sight of this terrestrial predator working the tide line at dawn, surrounded by seal colonies and fog, against the backdrop of desert dunes meeting Atlantic surf, is one of the stranger wildlife spectacles in Africa, evidence of the flexibility of the hyena family in occupying ecological niches that seem improbable for an animal most people associate with open savanna. And then there is the aardwolf, Proteles cristata, which is not truly a hyena in the intuitive sense of the word and which will surprise anyone who meets it for the first time, because the aardwolf has taken the hyena body plan and redirected it so completely that it seems barely related to its spotted and striped cousins. The aardwolf is a termite specialist. It eats almost nothing but termites, specifically a particular genus of harvester termites called trinerviderms, lapping them up from the soil surface with a wide, sticky tongue during the night hours when these termites are active above ground. A single aardwolf can consume somewhere between 200,000 and 300,000 termites in a single night's foraging. The jaws that in spotted hyenas can crack a buffalo femur are in the aardwolf reduced and simplified because the aardwolf does not need to crack anything. It needs to eat small, soft insects in enormous quantities, and its anatomy has been redesigned accordingly. The teeth are small and peg-like. The jaw muscles are reduced. The tongue is wide and sticky and capable of moving rapidly enough to lap up insects faster than they can scatter. The aardwolf is, in the zoological literature, a textbook example of dietary specialization, the narrowing of a generalist ancestor's diet to a single food source in a way that allows monopolization of that resource at the cost of almost total flexibility. An aardwolf cannot eat what a spotted hyena eats. Its jaw literally cannot process large food. But within its specialty, it is supremely effective, and harvester termites are so abundant across the savannas and semi-arid grasslands of sub-Saharan and East Africa that this specialization can support substantial aardwolf populations without depleting the resource. The aardwolf maintains the hyena family's tradition of chemical complexity, producing anal gland secretions that function as territorial markers, deposited at specific scent marking points that define an individual or family group's territory. These secretions are, like the spotted hyenas, chemically complex mixtures of bacterial fermentation products that carry individual and group identity information readable to other aardwolves. In a family of animals where scent is a primary communication medium, the aardwolf maintains this capacity even as it has reduced or eliminated most of the other predatory and competitive behaviors of its relatives. Now let us go back to the spotted hyena and talk about competition, because the spotted hyena does not live in a vacuum. It lives in an ecosystem that includes the lion, and the relationship between these two species is one of the most complex and consequential predator-predator relationships in Africa, a competition that has shaped the behavior, the anatomy, and the social organization of both species over millions of years of coevolution. Lions and hyenas compete for food, they compete for territory, they compete for kills, and they compete for something more fundamental than any of these, for the population dynamics of the prey species on which both depend, for the ecological carrying capacity of their shared habitat. The competition is not a sideshow to African ecology. It is one of the central dramas playing out every night across the savannas and woodlands of the continent in interactions that range from the routine to the genuinely catastrophic for individual animals on both sides. The general rule, in an encounter between a spotted hyena and a lion, is that size and group composition determine the outcome. A single lion meeting a large group of hyenas will lose. It will back down or it will be mobbed and potentially killed. A pride of lions meeting a single hyena will dominate absolutely. In between these extremes are an almost infinite number of intermediate situations, and hyenas and lions both appear to be aware of and capable of calculating the odds in real time. There is experimental evidence from field studies where researchers played back recordings of hyena calls to lions, varying the number of apparent hyenas in the playback, that lions adjust their response to the auditory cue in ways that reflect an assessment of whether the number of hyenas indicated is manageable or threatening. Two hyenas calling, the lion approaches, potentially to steal the kill. Many hyenas calling, the lion retreats or does not approach at all. The mathematics of predator confrontation is being computed in real time by both species with survival as the stakes. Hyenas have evolved a specific counter-strategy to lion dominance that involves social vocal recruitment, the calling behavior that we started this entire discussion with. When a hyena on a kill encounters a lion or lions that are numerically dominant, it calls loudly, repeatedly. The whoop carries for kilometers, and if there are clan members within range, they come. The hyena's ability to rapidly aggregate clan members from a dispersed foraging situation is one of the primary functions of its vocal repertoire, and it is directly shaped by the competitive pressure of lions. The whoop is not just communication between clan members. It is a military signal, a call to rally the forces. The response time and travel distance that hyenas will cover to support a clan member at a kill is impressive. Studies have documented individual hyenas traveling several kilometers at speed in response to calls, arriving at the kill site and almost immediately tipping the numerical balance from lion-favored to hyena-favored. The clan acts as a distributed network, individuals spread across a large territory but all within earshot of a call and all, under the right circumstances, willing to respond to it. This distributed but rallyable social structure is one of the things that allows hyenas to compete effectively with lions despite the lion's individual physical superiority. There are documented cases, observed by field researchers and captured on camera, of hyena clans driving lions off kills entirely, of dozens of hyenas surrounding a pride and forcing them to retreat through sheer numerical pressure, of female hyenas with cubs being defended by rallied clan members against male lions attempting to enter the den area, of hyena matriarchs leading coordinated harassment campaigns against resident lion prides that reduce the lion's foraging efficiency and eventually result in the lions moving out of a portion of territory. The hyena is not the lion's subordinate in any absolute sense. It is the lion's competitor, and in the right circumstances, the hyena's side wins. This competition has deep ecological consequences. In ecosystems where lions have been removed, through human hunting pressure or habitat fragmentation or disease, hyena populations typically